and welcome. My name is Dylan J. Walker, and today I'm going to show you how to start on creating a randomly generated endless runner. I'm using Unity 5.0.1, so if you're using an earlier version, I recommend you download this one before continuing. Let's get started. We're going to be making the game by making a heap of prefabs that we're going to store in an array, and then we're going to randomly choose one of those prefabs from the array and spawn it, and then we're going to choose another one from the array and spawn it next to it, and so on, so on, so on. So yeah, to begin with, we're going to need to make a prefab. So the prefab's going to be made out of a heap of smaller objects, just to make it easier for us. So we want to make a sprite, and then just center it in the world, and then set it just to our default sprite, and then then we want to copy that one, and control and click and drag instead of just click and drag will allow you to move it on the grid. So move it up one on the grid, and then select both of these, and you want to scale them so that they meet and touch in the center. And then once we have these, we just want to copy them with Control D, and then copy them again, again, and again, and then do the same thing after we select the top row, and copy it, and copy it. And now we have what we're going to call a block. This block is made out of 25 smaller blocks, and these, like I said, are going to be what we create the actual world out of. So if we're making an endless runner, we're probably going to want all of the blocks to have a green bottom for the ground. We'll just keep it simple. And then we also need it to be inside of an empty game object. So we're going to need the empty game object to be right in the middle of our prefab, so that, well, our block, so that when we spawn them, they spawn in the center, like in the right position, and then they can always spawn next to each other. So we want to rename this empty game object to block 1, and then we want to grab all of our block, besides our camera, and drag it into block 1. And now that we have this block 1, we need to make a folder for it. So come down to your project window, click create, folder, call it prefabs, and then just when we're here, we'll create another folder called scripts, and then we want to come up to our block and drag it into our prefabs folder. So now if we come into our prefabs folder, we have an instance of our block. So now if we click and drag, we can make as many of them as we want, but we don't need them right now. And you can also see now if we click on our block gets highlighted, which means if we move it, the entire thing will get moved. So we'll put it back to where it was, and then yeah. So now we need to make multiple blocks so that we have multiple parts of the world to spawn. So we need to grab the entire block, Control D, and drag it over. And you'll see it automatically got called block 2, but we don't have a block 2 in our prefabs yet, so we just want to click it and drag it down to our prefabs. And then we'll just do this like 5 times. And then drag them all down. Yeah, so they're all the same at the moment, but now we need to come in and put some obstacles. So we'll just have red as the obstacles now, just to keep it simple. So just put different ones on each. And now that we have 5 different ones, you'll see that if we click and drag these down, we're still getting the old ones. So we just want to click on the new ones and click apply. So do that for each. And that will apply all the changes to that prefab to every prefab that we have. So now if we come down, we have the new ones. So now that we have some prefabs, we need to start with some scripting. So we come down to our scripts and create a new C# script. And just call that block spawn, or whatever you want really, but block spawn kind of makes sense. Because this is going to be the script that handles getting the random blocks and putting them in the right position. So let's open that up, just double click it. And then here we are with our script. So I always like to drop the brackets down just to make it a little bit easier to read for me. I didn't mean to have it like that though. There. So we're going to need some public variables to begin with. Like I said, we're going to store all of those blocks we just made in an array. So first we need to make our array, which will be an array of game objects. So if you have game object and then the 2 square brackets, that just means it's an array of game objects. And we want it to be called blocks. And now that we have that, we're also going to need a transform for our block spawner, which will be an empty game object that moves to where we want our next block to be positioned. So we need a public transform block spawner. Seeing our script is called block spawn and it's block spawner, we'll just call it block spawner position. You don't need to do that, but I'm just going to do it to make it easier for me. And then we're going to need a public int if we want to keep track of our block count, which is be how many blocks have been created. And we want to just set that to 0. And we're also going to need a public float, which will be our new position, which will be the new position of our next block, which will be 1 over from the next one. So now we have our public variables, we're going to need some private variables. So we'll need a private int again to store our random number to choose which block we want to get from an array. So just call that random number. We'll need a private game object. Actually, we won't need that. No, yeah, we probably will. We need a private game object, which is a float called wait time. We'll just make that equal to like 2 at the moment. And then, yeah, they're all the variables we should need. So let's get started with the actual script. Yeah, so we're going to handle all of the block spawning in our own function. So we don't want it to be in void start or void update. So we're going to make our own public void. And we'll call it blocks. We'll just call it block. And then give it its brackets. And then to begin with, we're going to need a random number to actually get the random. Should we do it for random number or should we just do it with random range? Random range would probably be easier. we'll just do it with random range. So we need to first start spawning our blocks. Oh, actually, before we do this, we need to work out what our new position will be equal to. So if we come back over to our game and grab one of our blocks and move it next to another, and then select the middle block and get its position, and then select the middle block of the other one and get the position, and you'll see the difference between them on the X is 5. So we want it to be plus 5, which means each time we spawn a block, we'll move our spawning position 5, which will put it next to the next block. So if we just come down to our script again, make this equal to 5, now that will be good. So now let's get started on actually spawning the blocks. So we actually might need one more variable. We'll need a private game object just called block. Actually, we'll call it, yeah, block with a lowercase. And then so that will be block with a lowercase there as well. So block is equal to instantiate, which means spawn blocks, which is the blocks in our array, which we'll put in a second. Square brackets, random, random dot range, and then into the random range we just want to have 2 variables, because random range will get us a random number between 2 numbers. So our first number will be 0 and our second number will be 5, because we have 5 different prefabs. And then we want to comma, tell it where to spawn, which will be our block spawner. Where is it? Oh wait, we got a block spawner position there. Quantonian identity. Does that still work? Yes. And then we want to say it's as a game object. So this line is just saying that our block is block equal to instantiate blocks from random into our position at this position's rotation and all that kind of stuff, and as a game object. So then all we also need is a temporary vector 3 temp, and that will be equal to block spawner position dot position, and then we'll actually set what this is. So our temporary variable will be temp dot y equals 0. Oops. 0. Temp dot x equals what our number up there was, so 5. And then temp dot z equals 0. And then we just need to say block spawner position dot position. Oops. Is equal to temp. And then this will work, but we also need a delay on everything. So to do that, we're going to need another function, which will be our enumerator. And we'll just call this wait. And in here we want to yield and then return our new wait for seconds. Then here we actually want to have our wait time, which we set up here. And then in that line, which is just saying that wait for seconds, how many seconds we put here, which is 2 seconds. So then we also need to put our block count up by 1, and then tell it to do blocks again. Wait, why is that doing that to me? Oh, because we called that block. No. Why is it doing this? Well, we also need to start that coroutine, which is our enumerator. So start coroutine wait. Okay, there we go. Now it understands that that is that. So now that it waits for that time, and then it does this again, and then it does that, and then it tells it to wait, so it waits for that time, and then it does this again. We're also going to need to run block at the start, so that we have a block to start with, and then I'm not quite sure why we're getting a flag on this, so we're just going to have to go into editor and have a look at that and see if everything else is working. So come over to the editor. So if we have a look down here, unexpected symbol in class strut member. Okay, let's have a look at that. Oh, it doesn't need to equal that, it just needs to be block. That was silly. Okay, so now all that should be working. Okay, we got another problem. Has some invalid arguments. Where? Let me just look at this for a sec. What could it be? Ah. We didn't actually set that we're manipulating the position. We're just giving it a whole variable. Okay, so now let's save that and have a look at that. Fingers crossed. Cool. So now if we grab this block again and put it back to where it was meant to be, and then create a new empty game object, and we'll place this into the center of the world, and then we'll put it at the center of this, and then we should have done that in a second, because we'll grab all these, put that down there, and then we want to grab our new empty game object. Ah, cool, it's still there. So we'll call this block spawn there, and then we want to add our script to that, so add that to that, and then for this position, just put this into there, and then if we go like this so we can actually watch it happen, this should hopefully work. Wait, I've got maximize on play, so wait one sec. Oh, hang on, we haven't set up an array yet either. So come to blocks, set the size to 5, and then just drag in all of our prefabs. And you don't want to set it to 5, you want to set it to 4, because arrays are from 0. Oh, hang on, no, I'm wrong. It automatically does it for you. Cool. So now press play, and this should hopefully work. Still have maximize on play on. Yeah, so we have our first block, and our second block isn't in the right spot. So let's see what's going on. And then they're all in the same spot. So let's have a look at our script again. Well, this one's actually pretty simple. It's just because we're making it equal 5, when really we want to say plus equal 5, because we want to add it on top of where we were at last time instead of just keeping it there. And then that should be fine. And then the other thing is, because we have our y at 0, that's why it dropped down a little bit. But to fix that, we'll just do this. We'll move these down a little bit further, once it lets me. And then come to our empty game object, which is our block spawner, and just move that to the center of the world. And now if we press play, this should work. Obviously that's too slow to play, so let's just go to our script quickly, change this to half a second, an eighth of a second. We probably should have waited for it to finish compiling, but it won't let us play until it has, so just wait. And then yeah, we're instantiating a random world for our player to play on. So this will be the first tutorial. We'll just leave it at that for now, so you can get your head around all of this. And then in the future, probably next week, I'll be continuing on this and showing you how to get more functionality into it. But yeah, hope you enjoyed. Please like, comment, subscribe. If there's anything you didn't understand, leave a comment and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Enjoy your day.